Experts is brought to you by Vermonti's. Craving something cheesy, crispy, and unforgettably delicious? Say hello to Vermonti's Pizza, where every slice is a love letter to the Green Mountain State. From classic pepperoni to our legendary mac and cheese pizza, we're serving up bold flavors you won't find anywhere else. Order online and get 20% off your first order with promo code Vermonti20. That's VERMONTY20. Hit us up on Instagram at Vermonti's_Vermont Eats to see what's hot and fresh right now. Vermonti's Pizza, homegrown, handmade, and hella good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Potential Experts. Today is Tuesday, April 10th, and the Michigan Wolverines have ended the Big Ten's drought. They have ended their own personal drought since 1989, 37 years. The Michigan Wolverines are the college basketball national champions, defeating the UConn Huskies. Honestly, the dominant program of the last 26 years since they won their first natty in 99, coming up with their recent ones in 23 and 24. They defeated them 69-63 in the final last night in a game that I would categorize as, if you played that game 10 times, Michigan wins 8 of them. That wasn't even one of the more impressive victories, in my opinion, of Michigan. I felt like there were so many times throughout the second half specifically that Michigan was ready to put them away. They went up double digits at one point, and I would have bet my house that they would have ended up winning by 15 to 20 at that point. Credit to UConn, though, the team that's been there before, the coach that's obviously been there before, with some of the players like Alex Caravan that have been in that same spot before. They hung around, but ultimately the talent of Michigan, Elliot Cadeau, Yaxel Lendeborg, who honestly was limited by a sprained MCL last night, Morez Johnson, and the big fella, the Spaniard, Mara, they were just too much. Even as good as Terrace Reed is, as good as Caravan, Silas Demery, Solo Ball, whatever you want, Braylon Mullins, who was shaky at best last night, they were just simply too much. Brandon, I saw you shaking your head. Your beloved Huskies couldn't complete the dynasty. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, I'm not the biggest basketball guy on the show here, but watch the UConn game, watch the Final Four, watch the national championship game. When they're in March Madness, I'll definitely pay attention to what's going on a little bit more. And it's disappointing because obviously, anytime you're in that position, you want to win. But overall, I think you gotta be proud of the way that UConn played against Michigan because, as you said, Michigan just kinda blowing everybody out of the water. Every single game in this tournament, they put up 90 points or more, and UConn held them to 69. So that in itself is impressive. They forced Michigan to play more of their style of game, right? Slow the ball down, don't let this get out of hand. So props to UConn for doing that, making it a competitive game, and overall playing well. But I think a big reason for the loss is just for whatever reason, shots were not falling last night, and that was pretty evident throughout. It was on both sides of the ball, but I mean, look at Mullins, he's been a big part of their run through the tournament this year, and 3 of 10 on three-pointers and then 4 of 17 on field goals. You just can't have a night like that from one of your studs.
Yeah. Well, honestly, and Ben, sorry, before I get to you, what you just said, Brandon. What if you're frustrating if you're a Husky fan is the fact that yes, you're right. The Huskies did not shoot well, especially from three range. They shot 27%, but Michigan shot 13% from three. Like the recipe for a victory last night, UConn was clearly the inferior team, as I stated in the beginning. If you play that game 10 times, Michigan wins 8. The recipe to defeat an inferior team that is that much better, or sorry, a superior team that's that much better than you, is they have a really, really off shooting night and you have an above average shooting night. And they got that off night from Michigan and they couldn't control the controllable. Honestly, they can control how they play. Sometimes you can't control if you put a hand in a face and the guy laces one, nothing but nylon. That didn't happen for Michigan last night, but UConn wasn't able to capitalize. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going back to what Brandon was saying, like, I feel like just getting there for UConn was a pretty big accomplishment. I know they won 2 national championships in the past 3 years before this, but looking at the guys on those teams and how talented they were, this was clearly not as stacked of a roster as those groups were. You don't have guys like Donovan Clingan or Stephon Castle, and it was an impressive run from them. Obviously, taking down Duke was wonderful. They got through the Final Four against a very hot Illinois team, but when it comes down to it, like Michigan's just got the new meta, for college basketball, to use like a video game term. I mean, when you have an elite ball handler, which is something every team needs, that's like, why Duke didn't get all the way or why Illinois got so far. You have that lead guard. And then I mean, when you have that much money and you can just stack your roster with huge giants of human beings, Mara is going to go to the league, and a big part of that is just because he's going to be able to bang size wise with those big NBA bodies. And I mean, when you have that and you go up against a school like UConn, who, I mean, they had Terrace Reed, but outside of that, you don't have a lot of super talented big men. Like, that's going to win out. And I think you're going to see in the next few years of college basketball. I mean, most sports are, but I think basketball in particular is a copycat league. And you're going to see teams try to build rosters in a similar way where you just have these giants and then you have someone who can kind of run the show. And then the other guy I wanted to talk about, like you said, limited by injury, but Yaxel, what's his name?
Lindenborg.
Lemonborg or
Lindenborg, yeah.
something?
He's like 24.
Lindenborg. Ben, tell me if I'm wrong. And I mean, Brandon, feel free to as well. But I feel like this will make more sense to Ben. Is Yaxel, there's no way he's not going to be on the Miami Heat, right?
I mean,
Like he is such a Miami Heat player. If they get like the 16th pick or something, he's just gonna fall to them and they're gonna take him. Like he's such like a Jaime Jaquez, like older college player who they just get in the system, they get the conditioning, and they just turn him into just like the most annoying kind of like sixth, seventh man on your team who's gonna give you buckets, and you're just like, I hate this guy. But he is a Miami Heat player if I've ever seen one.
well,
I can say that
it's
confidently.
funny you bring them up because I'm watching the Heat play the Raptors right now. I really hope you're wrong because I love Yaxel Lendeborg. He's one of my favorite like mid first round prospects here, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm like quietly hoping that this sprained MCL forces him to drop to the later first round so that the Knicks can take a look at him. I think he brings a lot of energy, but I think you're right. I think Spo would love to have him, so I really hope he doesn't end up in a Miami Heat jersey. But the way you describe it, it seems like a Miami Heat archetype, which is concerning to me, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Benjamin.
Well, I was just
No, you.
yeah, yeah.
I
I,
insist.
I was just gonna say I'm looking at some of these stats, and if you were to take the context in a vacuum, it's crazy to see how much actually went UConn's way, and they were not able to capitalize. UConn attempted 13 more field goals than Michigan, 68 to 55. They hit 7 more threes than Michigan. They hit 9. Michigan only hit 2. I already talked about 3-point percentage. UConn's percentage more than doubled Michigan's, 27 to 13. The free throw disparity is where Michigan definitely cleaned up. They have more than double the free throws made that Connecticut did, 25 for Michigan, 12 to UConn. So that certainly didn't go their way. UConn out-rebounded Michigan by 7, 46 to 39, and the turnover battle was almost split dead even. It was 11 for UConn and 10 for Michigan. So you kind of spell everything out like that. If you're a UConn fan, you're sitting there, and obviously you can't really complain as a UConn fan. 3 Final Fours in 4 years, 2 national championships, you one additional finals berth. However, you got to be kicking yourself because from the outside looking in, you got the game that you needed from Michigan in order to pull off one of the bigger upsets we would have seen in national championship game in recent memory. You ultimately didn't play well enough. That's what's got to be eating at UConn, if anything is at all.
One other thing that's killing me after watching that game, so maybe one of you guys can explain one part of this to me. I get so first off, foul trouble. I mean, early on in that first half, UConn got deep into foul trouble when I think Michigan only had 1 on the board and UConn already had like 4 of them racked up. It's like when you have that many fouls and you're kind of being forced to play a little bit more conservatively so you don't keep racking them up that early in a game, I know it hinders your ability to play defense, whether you like it or not. Because you want to keep your studs in the game, and if you can't do that, then you're going to be in real trouble, especially like I said, early in that first half. But also, there was, like I said, this is the part that maybe one of you guys can explain to me a little bit better. But the hook and hold call on Caravan in that first half being a flagrant call. I understand it being a foul, but the fact it's a flagrant, you get the 2 shots and the ball back. I just thought that's an absurd rule by the NCAA. Again, not a big basketball guy, so maybe one of you guys could be a little more knowledgeable on why it is that way to me. But again, I just think it's absolutely absurd that that's a flagrant call.
What I would say is he remains engaged with the Michigan player Johnson's left arm and doesn't allow him to freely establish any kind of position. And as a result, that can be really dangerous when you're going for a rebound. A shoulder can easily pop out. It was a careless and what I would categorize as reckless act. You can clearly see Caravan's right arm hooks the left arm of Johnson. If those arms are just straight and he's just pushing the arm down like so, maybe it's a foul, definitely not a flagrant. The fact that there was a hook and an attempt to drag, that's the flagrant right there.
Okay, see, to me,
All
it's
right.
like when I hear, "Hey, I'm gonna be I'll let you go in 1 second, Ben. But just to me, when I hear flagrant, I just hear there is some kind of intentional act to injure. To me, I look at that as two guys who get tied up on a play. Yeah, he's definitely like acting upon the fact that they got tied up. I look at it as a flagrant as like there is a very clear intent, like I'm just trying to beat the crap out of you, and I didn't see it on the play.
Ben,
I don't think that's flagrant foul. I'm
a
watching
little
that right
soft.
now.
Jules.
Yeah, like he's making a play for a rebound. It's a basketball play. Like it's not like he was in the air and then he grabbed him out of the air and hooked on his arm. Like that's when it gets dangerous when a guy's in the air and kind of defenseless. But if you're doing that on the ground and then he goes up through it, that's just regular foul. I see that happen to Cat maybe 3 times a night and there's not a single whistle blown. So I would say, yeah, regular foul, move along. But sports these days, I'll be that guy. They're closer to WWE than they are real sports. I'm sure there was gambling motivations involved, and whoever the Roger Goodell, Adam Silver of the NCAA is, probably needed Michigan to win that one. So that would be my explanation for you, Brandon.
There you go, B.
Okay, appreciate the insight from our basketball guys here.
Yeah, NBA guys. We'll leave it at that. I had another thing about college, unless you guys had anything else on this game.
No.
All right. So the other thing happening in college basketball is that UNC, they've been looking at coaches for a little bit now. They've obviously been pretty disappointing the past couple of years. And kind of out of the blue, Mike Malone ends up being the new coach of the UNC Tar Heels. Seems like a lovely place to live. Mike Malone, NBA champion, was considered one of the best coaches in the league for a while. Ben, did he get a coach of the year at any point?
Very, very confident he did.
And despite that, there was some like kind of just internal beef going on with him and the GM where they both kind of acted like they were 8 years old and the owner kind of decided just to move on from both of them and get a fresh start because of the toxicity that stemmed from that. But he is by all means a great coach and now he's at UNC. I think it's an interesting hire for 2 reasons. One, I can see the upside of it because his coaching style is very like aggressive, hard nosed. He's like a New York guy. He's very blunt. And I think that can work well with college kids in like a Dan Hurley type of way where they're more willing, because they're still children to like receive that more like strict, firm hand than like professional athletes are, where they're like, I'm a grown man too. Like, you're not talking to me like this. But Mike Malone also, the root of that conflict between him and the Nuggets general manager was that this GM drafted a bunch of young guys like Peyton Watson, who now with Mike Malone gone is having a great season outside of injuries. And Mike Malone refused to play the young guys. He was not interested in development. He relied strictly on veterans outside of Christian Brown. So I think it's weird that he's going to go coach young kids now in a school like UNC where obviously they're trying to win. But another big part of a blue chip program like that is you want to develop guys so they can become NBA products. That's part of your pitching point for guys coming to play at UNC. So there's definitely some upside to it. But again, very kind of a weird hire. Obviously, a random one. Ben, did you have any thoughts on that move by UNC?
Yeah, it's several. The biggest takeaway for me, honestly, is the fact I'm going to compare the North Carolina Tar Heels to the New York Yankees a little bit. I'll explain my comparison. I know it's a strange one. You might be sitting there going, "What are you talking about, Pags?" The reality is, and Ben, you kind of even alluded to this when, like, because you just recently became like a full blown Yankee fan. You were casual for a few years. I think you're beyond casual at this point. And you made a joke this offseason, because the Yankees, their whole thing was run it back. They didn't really make any big moves. Your whole thing was, this is not what I was promised when I became a Yankee fan. This is not the lore of the New York Yankees. And I feel like that lore of the 90s Yankees, certainly, the Yankees of the 70s and even prior to that with George Steinbrenner and company, that lore is kind of gone. And I feel a similar way about the storied program of the North Carolina Tar Heels because everywhere you looked, there was these young up and coming coaches that were saying, no, I'm good. Appreciate the consideration. Thanks, but no thanks. You had Ben McCollum over in Iowa. He's an Iowa City guy. He is perfectly happy after their big-time Cinderella run, their Elite Eight run. They are perfectly happy to just move on. I didn't expect this one to happen by any means. I'm sure this guy is very secure in his position, but Brad Stevens, they called him. He said no. They looked into Mark Byington at Vanderbilt. Nothing happened with that. I don't know if he said no. I don't know if they decided to move on. I know Billy Donovan told them I'm not interested in even talking to you until the Bulls season is over, which I respect. You're currently employed by the Chicago Bulls in the NBA. You shouldn't be talking to college teams during the season. Clearly, they weren't willing to wait that out. If that's true, I don't know why they weren't. Billy Donovan in North Carolina and Chapel Hill would have been special. But I kind of feel the same way that I do about the Yankees, where they're it's still a great program. The Yankees are still a great baseball team, but the lore and the dominance that this program once had over their respective sport isn't what it used to be. And that's what a Michael Malone hire says to me, quite frankly.
Yeah, and when I saw that, my mind immediately, because it's just kind of how this works, started thinking about like what other current or former NBA coaches would be willing to make that
Can
transition.
I
Because I
guess?
think it is like a bit of an ego hit. But I had one that immediately came to mind.
I,
Do you know who it has
it
been?
has to be JJ, right?
That wasn't the one,
Really?
but I do think that I mean, now that you say it, that is a good one. I wasn't really thinking of him leaving LA anytime soon, especially with Luca there for the long haul. But the way he does like appreciate the game itself and like, his quote unquote background, like coaching youth basketball and like instilling these concepts and teaching guys how to actually play definitely lends itself more to the college game than the NBA. But I thought of a different guy for kind of just a completely different reason. It's my favorite coach of all time. It's Tom Thibodeau.
Really?
Kind of a si kind of a similar guy to Mike Malone, but what I've noticed in college basketball with the transfer portal is that unless you're like an outlier like Purdue, you don't have 3, 4 years with a group of guys to instill a culture and to build up a culture and a system that's going to get you, through those tough times and challenges that you'll see in a tournament like the one in March. Tom Thibodeau is the best culture builder maybe in any sport. And if you're going to have a team of like one and dones or guys coming in the transfer portal and you need to make that team a team within like a 7-month period, he might be the best guy out there to do it. And he's similar to Mike Malone, where like that kind of hard nosed style, I think would mesh better with younger guys who look at him as like not a peer, but like an adult in themselves as kids. And I just think in this kind of transfer portal world, I think he'd be great at getting a team to where they need to be in a quick amount of time, which I think is a skill that's essential in modern college basketball. I think he'd be terrible at like like the actual transfer side of the transfer portal. Like I can't really picture him doing a lot of recruiting and stuff. You need another guy there to do that alongside him. But I think watching Tom Thibodeau on a college basketball sideline, just a guy who eats, sleeps, breathes basketball. He doesn't have a wife or kids. Like his life is basketball. I think like that passion translating to the college outside of the NBA, where it's more of a product at the end of the day. I just think would be like a perfect mesh, and I would love to see it happen.
This isn't super like relevant to your specific basketball points. I'm just thinking about like what an awesome meeting it would be with the athletic, like, I don't know if this would ever even happen, but if, Tom Thibodeau was the head coach of the North Carolina basketball team, what if, like, there was like a coaches meeting and you got Tom Thibodeau and Bill Belichick together in a room just talking hoop,
And
and
Jordan,
Jordan just talking hoop together. Oh man, that would just be, well, talking ball, I should say, because I don't think Belichick's talking too much hoop, but that would just make my day.
yeah,
No, it's funny, Ben.
I don't know.
In terms
Did I sell you on it?
Ooh, no, you made some great points about building a culture, but you're also talking about a guy in Tom Thibodeau who was consistently voted as the coach in the NBA that players would least like to play for. And I know, Josh Hart pokes some fun at people, be like, "Oh, y'all are soft." I remember he tweeted that, when that happened a few years ago with Tibbs being voted the least likable coach or whatever it is in the NBA. But the reality is, when you're recruiting 17, 18-year-olds, you got to appeal to them. And, the stories about Tibbs overplaying his players and not really being great about developing young guys probably isn't the biggest appeal. But then again, you could say, well, then what's the point of the Mike Malone hire? Fair.
But like, don't you think if Dan Hurley was in the NBA, he'd be like voted like the guy you'd least want to play for?
Yes, and I think it made no sense, and I think it made no sense that the Lakers pursued them 2 years ago as hard as they did. I'll never forget Kemper being so mad when Hurley decided to go back to UConn. And I remember, like, we were coming inside from a walk and talk. We were walking right by the office in Commons, and I told him, and he crashed out. I think he almost threw a chair. It was Kemper. I don't. I think you're overreacting. I think you dodged a bullet. This is an example of a great college coach and probably not great NBA coach. That happens all the time. Guys that are across all sports. Nick Saban's the best example. Okay. Bobby Petrino is another good example. Some guys are just meant to be in college versus the NFL. Matt Rule, not that he's a national champion coach, he was a disaster in Carolina and does a pretty nice job over at Nebraska right now. Like there's examples everywhere you look of guys that are good in one or the other, not good in both. And I unfortunately think Mike Malone might end up being that, for example, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Speaking of coaching, time for a little segue. I've heard there's a lot of coaching things happening in probably what would you say, the fifth biggest sport in America, the National Hockey League.
Well, it's one of the big four. I wouldn't call it fifth, but definitely fourth out of four. I will give you that. Yeah, we've had a lot of coaching changes in the NHL in the last week. Well, 2 coaching changes, 1 front office move. So we'll touch on those real quick. So first things first, you may have heard this name before, Patrick Waugh, head coach of the New York Islanders, Hall of Fame goaltender in his playing days. Yeah, he's out with the Islanders. So, the team's not going to make the playoffs probably more likely than not. Yes, Ben, what is your question here?
How do you spell
Oh,
"wah"?
that's the best question. Oh, that's the best question.
I knew I was going to ask that at some point. I was
Do,
like,
do,
as
do,
soon as
you,
I say that, I'm going to have to explain
do you know
how
how
you
it's spelled,
spell
Ben?
Wah.
No, I've never heard of this guy before.
Can I say it?
Go for it.
He's he spells it Roy.
It's
Was his
because
Roy?
yeah,
Roy.
it's not Roy. It's not Roy. It is Wah. The important distinction here being he is French Canadian, hence why it
Mm.
is pronounced nothing like it appears.
French Canadians, one of the most, well, I'm not going to generalize. My interactions with French Canadians, they've been very subpar, but please continue.
All right, so Patrick Waugh has been relieved of his duties as the New York Islanders head coach, and it's a little bit surprising to happen this close to the end of the season, but I do think it was a positive move overall for the Islanders because they're bringing in Pete DeBoer. This is not an interim situation. This is immediate, like, we're firing you, we're hiring this guy to be our next head coach. Pete DeBoer was one of the shocking firings after last year's postseason when the Dallas Stars lost in the conference finals to Edmonton. Everyone was a little bit I should say everyone was a little bit surprised because there were rumblings that he could be fired if Dallas did not make a serious run to the finals. But Pete DeBoer is a great head coach. He has not had a losing record in a full season of coaching since his time with the New Jersey Devils in the 2013-14 season.
Oh, wow.
The last time he was fired was with Vegas, or before Dallas. Last time was with Vegas. They missed the playoffs but had a winning record. His time in San Jose, they were right around 500 when he was fired. So he's really been the epitome of a great head coach, in all of his trips. We've talked a little bit about this before, how the NHL moves on from their head coaches very quickly. So the fact that DeBoer's, had somewhere between 3 to 5 years was the last 3 stints. That's a pretty good track record for him. But now moving forward, I just think the Islanders have made a really solid move. DeBoer's a great head coach, and he's going to do good things with the Islanders. The next move we got on our list here, Pags, you know a little bit about this guy. The Vegas Golden Knights have fired Bruce Cassidy, and again, they're bringing in a guy right away who is not getting the interim tag. They've hired John Tortorella to be the head coach going forward now. And to me, I mean, this one seems a little bit, I don't know how to put it exactly, but it seems like you fired the same guy that you just hired a little bit. The reason for Cassidy being fired, and there are similar signs of this when the Bruins fired him before he was hired by the Golden Knights, in that he was kind of wearing out his welcome. There are players who were very fed up with his coaching style, very hard-nosed guy, rough on the players and demands a lot. So when you bring in a guy like John Tortorella, you kind of have the same exact thing you just had with Bruce Cassidy. I think it's just a fresh face who's going to keep hitting them with the same thing. It's a new voice in the room, but that's all that's really going to change there. A little bit surprising simply because their timing, and Vegas is in the midst of a pretty intense playoff push. So just a little, the timing on that is more concerning than anything else. Pags, you got to see Tortorella behind the bench with the Rangers. Give us your take. What are the Golden Knights getting with him?
In John Tortorella, they're getting the Tom Thibodeau of the NHL, which is bad for them. It's not what they need at all. As I will say about Tom Thibodeau, and the same thing is true for John Tortorella, they are the coach you want if you're looking to take a team that should be below 500 and hit 500 or even a handful of games above. They will overachieve when the expectations are rather low. When the expectations, such as they are in Vegas, are that you are competing for championships, Stanley Cups, whatever you want to call it, they struggle to elevate those types of contending teams. They're not going to be abysmal. They're not going to take a team that should be, 10, 15 games over 500 and bring them down to 500, but they are incapable of elevating them any further. And again, when you're a team like Vegas, that is what the expectation is. That's what you're looking for. You've had nothing but pretty ridiculous success since you became a franchise in 2018. You went to the Stanley Cup final your very first year. You won a cup in 2023. So again, the standard is the standard over in Vegas, and I don't really see Torts reaching that standard. He'll fire up the team, he'll fire up the guys, but I don't know if he's good enough schematically to the point where he can actually lead them to a Stanley Cup.
And I totally agree with that. He's a floor raising coach. He's not necessarily a guy who's going to single handedly scheme his way to a Stanley Cup. He does have a cup win in his history, but definitely a floor raiser type of coach. The last thing I want to talk about here in terms of firings in this last week or so, Toronto Maple Leafs have cleaned house in the front office. Brad Treliving took over for Kyle Dubas 3 years ago, and now he is out. Dubas, of course, infamous for creating the core four in Toronto, that, of course, being John Tavares, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, and Mitch Marner. Propelled them to a lot of first-round playoff losses, and eventually the Leafs just said, all right, Dubas, we're done with you. You can't get out of the first round, so they bring in Treliving. Treliving gets them out of the first round. They get to the second round, but not much further. They don't get any further than that. And now, just 3 years into his tenure, the core four is broken up. Mitch Marner is a Vegas Golden Knight. Austin Matthews' season is over, and Brad Treliving is fired as the Maple Leafs have plummeted to what looks like it could be potentially a top 5 draft pick in this year's draft. So overall, I think it's the right move for the Leafs. Treliving is definitely underwhelmed in his time with the Leafs front office and not lived up to the expectations when they hired him away from Calgary. So Leafs have not hired anyone yet. I'm sure that that's something they'll be tackling as we get a little bit closer to the offseason, but definitely not going to be in a rush to make a move at that level like you would be a head coach.
Was it 68 that they won their last cup?
1967. Yeah, it's been
Kids
a minute.
are gonna love that one, B.
It's better than well, it's not better.
You-
It's worse than
I was
73.
gonna
Let's go,
say,
Ben.
are you about to compare the Knicks? Because it's not. It's not worse.
No, it's worse.
Um,
Because you know what, Pags, at least the Knicks have made a couple of solid runs in the last couple of years. The Leafs lost like 6 consecutive game sevens in the first
The
round.
Leafs
Like,
gone back to the Cup final since then.
I don't think so. I know they haven't. I'm very confident they haven't.
Yeah, that's really bad. At least the Knicks have a few NBA finals to their resume.
dude, 90s Knicks, one of the best teams ever to not win an NBA championship.
Yeah, true. If you're looking at the collective bunch, that's fair. Brandon, as always, we appreciate your puck knowledge. What would we do without our goaltender, our goaltender previews, stuff to look for? We'd quite frankly be very, very lost. We are.
Brandon,
Hey,
wow.
and you know what? Today, everyone got a lesson on the French language.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Wonderful thing. Ben, thank you for bringing that into the conversation. It's what everyone needed today.
Thank you for enlightening me. Now I think we got to switch to currently the number 3 sport in America. I think it'll be back to number 1 by the time we get to like 2100. I got a
Hockey's
whole
on the
theory
rise,
on
man.
that.
Hockey's on the rise.
Well, baseball is awesome. And the regular season has started. We're about like 10, 11 games in for most teams. Most teams are on like their 4th or 5th series at this point. And Benjamin, let's overreact a little bit.
Yeah.
Hit me with something.
I'm going to hit you with the following. The Red Sox rotation, their additions of Ranger Suarez and Sonny Gray were incredibly overblown in the offseason. I was told by several sources that this is going to be a top 5 rotation in the league. And while pitching hasn't been their main issue, it's really been their lineup. Um, the pitching hasn't been overly impressive by any means either. Certainly a far cry from the top 5 rotation that was promised. The Red Sox will finish in last in the American League East, as they are currently sitting at 2-8 and just look uninspiring and abysmal on pretty much every level you can possibly look.
Red Sox below. That's pretty fire. Does Crochet looked all right?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, Crochet to me is the second best pitcher in the AL behind Skubal, but I mean, one guy that plays every 5 days that'll probably start around 35 at most 40 games in a particular year. I mean, he's bound to have a handful of just clunkers as well. I mean, he's not going to win all 35 of those starts, obviously. I mean, if he wins 25 of them, that's pretty ridiculous. But so he's exceptional. And listen, it's an ebb and flow. I mean, we're saying overreaction for a reason. So if you're a Red Sox fan listening to this, I'm going, Pags, why are you freaking out? It's 10 games in. Yeah, that's the point, guys. It's called an overreaction. We are, 1/16th through the season. But I'm calling it what it is. They look atrocious, like really, really bad. They've blown leads, like 4-run leads. Actually, it was a 3-run lead yesterday. A 3-run lead yesterday, a 4-run lead the day before in consecutive games. Roman Anthony can't even, the star of last year, the excitement. Roman Anthony, as great as he is,
Noodle arm.
as great as bad as in the lineup, he can't field. He's already being put as a DH. At this point, I think I was talking with Ethan about this the other day because we hung out to watch the Final Four game together. And I said something like, I don't understand how Alex Cora still has a job. I understand he won the World Series back in 2018, but baseball managers have been fired much closer to World Series victories and for a lot less, just being abysmal than Alex Cora has. So it surprises me that he still has a job. I imagine that if they don't make the playoffs this year, they might be in the market for a new manager. Ben, you want to hit me with one of yours?
Yeah, I got 2. I'm gonna start a little closer to home, and then we'll broaden it for the last one here.
I know.
But the best athlete in the state of New York is not Jalen Brunson, is not Malik Neighbors, it's not Karl Anthony Towns, it's not Juan Soto, it's not Aaron Judge.
It's Igor
best athlete-
Shesterkin.
It's not Igor Shesterkin either. The best athlete in the state of New York is one Cam Schlittler.
I love it.
And you said that Garrett Crochet was the second best pitcher in the AL. Cam Schlittler would like to have a word about that. Since he came to the Yankees on, I believe it was July 8th, making the switch to the major leagues. Bringing it up right now. Paul Skeens has pitched 77 innings since that time. Garrett Crochet has pitched 96 innings since that time. And Cam Schlittler, right in the middle, has pitched 84 innings since that time. And this is just counting regular season, not even counting that dominant postseason game he played against the Boston Red Sox. In those roughly equivalent innings, Paul Skeens has a 2.56 ERA. Garrett Crochet has a 2.91 ERA. And Cam Schlittler, the best of the three, has a 2.55 ERA. In terms of opponent batting percentage, Paul Skeens, 2.14. Garrett Crochet, 2.24. Cam Schlittler, 1.99. Best of the three. And when we get to strikeout percentage, Schlittler is the lowest of the three, but they're all within about a percentage point of each other. Cam Schlittler, when that dude steps on the mound, I'm shocked when a ball gets hit. He obviously throws heat, but he's added this little cutter to his arsenal where if he's in a 1-0 count, a 2-0 count, and he's just throwing bombs on those first 2 pitches, they're going to see that cutter come in and it's a little bit slower and they're like, oh, this is my chance to hit it. And that's a pitch you can hit. It's not a pitch you can hit good. And that's either going to go foul and get him back to a 1-1 or a 2-1, or it's going to go fair and it's going to be a ground out. He's developing as a pitcher. He's young. You could argue that if you're starting a team right now, and if we're looking at overreactions compared to Paul Skeens' starts of the year, Skubal, I'll still give it to him as the top guy. Outside of him, Schlittler might be the pitcher you want to take. He is dominant. He clearly likes the big moments. And, I was excited about him coming into the year, but, you could have thought maybe the playoffs was a little bit of a flash in the pan. No, it's clear that this guy's on an upward trajectory. And I'd go so far as to say that by the time we get to October, on a team with guys like Carlos Rodon, Max Fried, and Garrett Cole, Cam Schlittler might be the Yankees' ace.
Wow.
He is that good. and he's the best athlete in New York right now. So that's my little hot take to start the year as the Yankees sit atop not just the AL but the entire MLB as the best team in baseball.
Yeah, that is
I do have
wait, what's it?
Go ahead, Bags.
Oh, okay, that is
I got
certainly
a hot take.
that is certainly a bold call, Ben. And I hope it ends up being right. I think a lot of people would call us delusional as Yankee fans to be this excited about Schlittler, but I mean, listen, as you mentioned, he has an eye for the big moment. He doesn't shy away from it. He grew up a Boston boy, big Red Sox fan, and I think a big part of him just absolutely adores the fact that he has an opportunity to do this for the arch rival that he rooted against growing up. It's some kind of weird thing, this bug in his head that he just drives him even further. It hurts me a little bit because the Yankees are actually he's on the bump tonight. And the Yankees are actually losing 3-1 to the Athletics, so that hurts my heart a little bit. But but one game doesn't tell the story of a whole season. I guess you could easily say that about the Red Sox, because my hot take was about them being abysmal. But hey, listen, I mean, you said he could be our ace, dude. If he's like a solid 3 starter behind Fried and Cole, and then we go Schlittler and Rodon. That is a genuine, probably top 3 rotation in all of baseball. So if he,
Top three, not three,
yeah,
not two.
yeah, fair. I guess you still have to give it to the Dodgers, especially if Ohtani's dealing. But right now,
Yeah, I mean,
well, I can't read that.
the kid's just a dog.
Yeah,
He said the other day, "We're the Yankees. Everyone hates us. I find enjoyment in that."
I love him.
He's a sicko. That's the mentality you need to have on the bump. And he like, if I'm going to, what Kellerman say, like laser beam pointed at Earth, I need a strikeout. Give me Cam Schlittler. He's not backing down from that.
What is it? Laser beam pointed at Earth. You want Skeens or Schlittler? Out of everybody, the Martian's got the death beam pointed at Earth. You better hit it. I want Schlittler. Oh God, I hope that's not a
I
soundbite.
want
I
Schlittler.
want Schlittler. I hope that's not a soundbite. Ben, I love it. Brandon, what is your overreaction for the first 10 to 12 games in the MLB season?
So, Ben, you mentioned the player I'm going to talk about here real quick, and that is Shohei Ohtani. And anytime his name comes into the conversation, it's hard to have a hot take because he's just so good at baseball. But my take on him for this season, he's going to win the Triple Crown.
Oh, I like.
But that's not all. He's going to win the Triple Crown.
No. Oh, don't
He's
do it.
going to win the NL MVP again. And he is also going to win the Cy Young. He's getting them all this year.
You're a sicko. You're a sicko. There's no freaking way that he's getting all 3 of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's
He's
hard.
got an
It's
ERA of 0 so far. All I'm saying.
it is hard to win the Triple Crown when Ben Rice plays baseball. I'll tell you that. But
He doesn't
I
have
like
to
the
compete with Rice, though. He
mentality.
doesn't have to compete with Rice, to be fair.
Oh, is that how that? Yeah. See, I'm still learning baseball. They split it like fully, right? By like
Yes,
AL
they
and
do.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, Otani's a beast. I will say he kind of choked in that little World Baseball Classic. Like if Judge went out the way Shohei did, that would have been all over the place. But Shohei's got pretty good PR. I mean, and he is just like such a likable dude. He seems very cool. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's hard to have like a hot take about him. He's just an absolute unicorn. Like he's the Wembenyama of baseball. You really can't do nothing with him.
I might go so far as to say, like, Wembenyama is the Shohei of basketball. I just think that Otani should be the example of what a unicorn looks like across all sports, more so than any other athlete.
What about Travis Hunter?
I think that might be the closest comparison you could make if he turns out to actually be a stud, like MVP, Defensive Player of the Year type player.
I
But
love
we have
love
not
that.
seen nearly enough we have not seen nearly enough from Travis Hunter at the NFL level to be able to make that comparison.
I
yet.
love that. He could be the best comparison to Shohei Ohtani if he didn't suck at his sport. I love that.
Yep.
You know, Brandon, if I was in the major leagues and I hit 70 home runs and won the AL Cy Young Award for the Yankees, I actually might be the closest thing to a Wembenyama Shohei kind of guy.
I know what you're saying, Brandon.
We've only
feel
seen,
you.
like, what was it? He played 6 games in the NFL last year before he got hurt. I mean, it's a rookie year. And I think we could start having that conversation no earlier than 3 years from now.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Ben, do you have another one? You have one more, right? Why don't you hit us with that? And then we'll
Yeah.
move to a little.
I got one last baseball thought after 10 games, and I'm going to pose it as a question. The ABS system is the best rule change in sports since when?
Oh, that's a because I do love the ABS. I'd say um since instant replay became initiated in the NFL. I mean, for some of us, people don't understand it. It wasn't always like this. Like, where a play happens. Did he get his feet in bounds? Is did his knee hit the ground before the ball came loose? That wasn't always a norm. In fact, there's a very famous play, and I'm going to be such a nerd here in the 1978 AFC Championship game between the Oilers and the Steelers, where a ball got lobbed into the back corner of the end zone, and this player Renfro for the Oilers went up from Dan Pastorini, caught it, got his feet in. When you watch it live, you don't think he got his feet in. They didn't have instant replay. They called it incomplete. And that would have given the Oilers the lead. And I think 17-30, you don't know what happens the rest of the way. They called incomplete. Oilers had to kick a field goal. Steelers went on to dominate the rest of the game and win the Super Bowl. But it wasn't until 1986 that the NFL actually adopted at least even sparing use of instant replay. So I'd go as far as going back then. Brandon?
I don't know if I go back quite that far. I do agree it's one of the better rule changes in recent memory. I just might go back to finally implementing a coach's challenge in the NHL. I think that was another rather significant one. I don't remember what year that was, but it's definitely in that, I think in that same conversation, just because I think in order for it to be like what Pags, what you're saying is like with instant replay, we're going back to instant replay really being a major part of the game and the way a major part of the way the game is officiated. Way ABS is being implemented right now, it's not like it's every pitch. Requires players to be aware enough to call out it being a ball or a strike or challenge that. So I think I mean, we talked about this last week. We're definitely trending in the direction of this is going to be the norm in the near future. But as of right now, until it is an every pitch situation, I'd go with implementing coaches challenges in the NHL.
That's very Brandon. Do you know my take on coaches' challenges in the NHL?
What's that?
If they existed back in 2014, the Rangers would have won a Stanley Cup that year.
Okay.
Go back and look at
That's
go look. Do you know what I'm talking about?
not specifically. I was still a somewhat casual puck fan at the time. So, I mean, I know the Rangers lost in 5 to the Kings, and I know every game was, down to the wire, but
Yeah,
I could not tell you a specific play.
game 2 in LA. Rangers are up 4-2 in the third period. Very clear goaltender interference call. Goal for LA, cuts it 4-3. They didn't call it, and if we had coach challenge, that gets called goaltender interference. We win that game, and I think we win that series. But it is what it is. Can't do anything about it now. I can just be angry about it.
The NHL definitely needs to get goaltender interference right. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm always thinking that too. I had two rule changes that came to mind. First was kind of a series of rule changes implemented in the early 2000s in the NBA, headlined by instilling that defensive 3 seconds where you can't just have a guy camping out in the paint. That change just kind of forced teams to get a little more creative on defense, and it sped the game up a lot, and it made it a lot more free flowing into kind of that fast paced, poetic type of basketball that we see today, as opposed to that slugfest that defined the league for so long. But ironically, I think my winner goes to baseball, and it's the pitch clock. And that's why I think baseball is one of these sports that it would obviously used to be, like America's pastime, the number one thing, and it's been usurped by football and by basketball in recent history. But I just feel like baseball is going to it's just going to stand the test of time in a way that other sports don't. So, assuming the American empire hasn't fallen, in 200 years from now, with the way basketball is developed, where guys' bodies can't handle the game and they're just breaking down, and it's not feasible for athletes, as we're seeing with the numerous array of injuries happening in the league right now, and as football implements more and more of these safety rules that take away the aspects of the game that people love, I just think baseball, the way it's changing, is just only getting better. And obviously, you're never going to have that high viewership for every game of an 160 game season. But when it comes down to playoff baseball and things like that, and we're seeing it in recent history with the way it's growing globally and the amount of viewership these playoffs are getting, which is just these numbers are shooting back up. I think baseball's on a great upward trajectory, and they're making changes like this ABS system, like the pitch clock, that's just making the quality of the game better. Comparing that to a league like the NBA, which is making changes to, increase their finances, at, changing like these kind of superficial aspects of the game. Baseball is actually concerned with the game itself. And I think that comes down to like the best part of that ABS rule. I mean, you talked about like NFL instant replay or challenges. Those things take time and they just ruin the flow of the game, and they can be very tedious. The fact that this is just, you can't have coaches calling it. You got your batters, your catchers, your pitchers. It needs to be right away, and you get your answer in a split second. It's lovely,
I agree.
because that's the biggest issue with these challenges and replays in other sports, is that it's just such a drag to the flow of the game. Baseball is just, you don't skip a beat with it, so it's very lovely. Last thing for us to talk about
I got a
would be the NBA, but Ben's got something.
I pose this to Brandon. Ben, I'm curious on your thoughts on it. I said this to Newman as well. Newman and Brandon actually had the same thought on this. Newman was much more passionate about his thought as it pertains to baseball. Brandon was a little more casual. I think, in the interest of player safety, in the interest of just keeping the game exciting and the league relevant, managers should be able, and there have to be specific parameters around this, in the seventh inning or later, so the seventh, eighth, or ninth inning, if the deficit, in my opinion, 8 would be the number, is 8 or greater, you can call it as the opposing manager. Yeah, we're done.
Mercy rule.
Yeah, I don't want to go on, especially it's like game 1 of a series, to not like a playoff series. I'm talking like in playoffs, this would be absolutely no. But like in the regular season, it's July. You just got, you're on a 12-game road trip. You're on the first game of the final series. Team's dragging. You're a little beat up. You don't want to have to go into your bullpen and exhaust your bullpen. You don't want to have like a position player pitch. Nobody likes that. You can just look at the outcome, go, hey, we don't have it today. It's just not happening. I want my guys to rest up. We got 2 more games. We're going to try to take one of those and, salvage going 1 and 2 in the series. We're done here. I think you should be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it should be like up to the coach. We saw it in the World Baseball Classic. They had the 10-run mercy rule. So if it's regular season baseball and you want to implement an 8, 9-run mercy rule, why not? There's 162 of them. And like you said, player safety, that's always a motivating factor in these decisions from leagues. I'm not against it at all. I think that's a great call, and I think it'd be one of those other things that kind of keeps baseball moving in the right direction, as it has been doing for the past few years now.
Yeah, when I posed that, Brandon was minorly against. He's like, I don't think that should be it. Newman was just appalled at the suggestion, which I understand. I knew he would be. He's a baseball traditionalist.
He's unk.
Ben,
He's an old head.
this is Newman in a nutshell. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I don't agree with him, but I'm not saying like he is objectively wrong. He thinks that the only playoffs should be the World Series, so that the top record in the AL should face the top record in the NL in a 7-game series. There should be no wild card round, ALDS, ALCS, same thing in the NL. He think like, so last year, for example, it would have been the Brewers versus, I believe, the Blue Jays in the World Series, because the Dodgers were the 3 seed. So
Yeah, you're not saying he's wrong. I will say he's wrong. I will also say that Mullins wetted that 3 ball on Duke, about a week ago. That was pretty cool too. Dude, playoffs are like the best thing in sports. I don't know why you would want to get rid of that.
Last thing I'll say on this, I texted Newman a few minutes ago, and he got back to me. I said, we're on Potential Experts. Can I get a quote from you on your thoughts about the ABS system? And in Newman fashion, he goes, it is one of the least egregious changes to the game of baseball in recent memory. So he seems like
What an old
he
head.
seems like he's not pissed about it. It is the takeaway there. I think he hates the pitch clock.
Indifferent at best.
Yeah, I think he hates the pitch clock. I'm gonna ask him. We can move on to our next thing. I'll just like say it when he texts me back. But I'm gonna say, how do you feel about it? I'm trying to word this correctly. I'm just gonna say, what are your thoughts on the pitch clock? All right, we can move on.
Last thing, and I think I had like 6 NBA things lined up for us, but we're approaching an hour. So I'm just going to hit us with 1 or 2 of them, because next week, I'm so excited. NBA playoffs are on the horizon. We're going to do a playoff preview. So we'll save the majority of our NBA talk for that. I just wanted to mention a brief couple of things with the NBA. All right. First of all, I've had a roller coaster of a few weeks regarding my take I had on the podcast a few weeks ago, where I said if I was building an NBA team, I would take Cooper Flag over Victor Wembanyama. And you texted me a few days back and you were like, you want to rethink that? I was like, I'm going to die on this hill. And I stood my ground, and Cooper Flag proceeded to drop 50, followed it up with a stat stuffing 40 piece. First rookie to go back to back 40 since Allen Iverson. And the most important factor in all of this, I saw a clip of a post game interview, and Coop's got those bangs going on. The bangs weren't hiding it. My guy is going bald, like all the goats. Wemby's got a full head of hair. Did Michael Jordan have a full head of hair? Does LeBron James have a full head of hair? I think not. Bald Cooper Flag is the man to build around in the NBA. He's just got that intangible aspect to him to compound with just the absolute show he's been putting on. I'm very excited for his year two with Kyrie next to him, and they got another draft pick in there. I'd love to see Keaton Vogler over there. He's my new NBA crush in the upcoming draft. We'll talk about that more though when we get closer to the draft. I just think Cooper Flag's looking great. Obviously Wemby is, but it's like I was saying, dude's banged up right now. I don't know if I trust him long term, as I'm not rooting for that to happen, but I just think it's such a risk that Cooper Flag would still be my guy that I'd go with.
All right. I mean, crazy segue into talking about bald Cooper Flag as your reasoning for taking him over, the 7'4" alien, Victor Wembanyama. But listen, he is special, and if I will say, probably the best argument you could have, in my opinion, to taking Flag over Wemby is the fact that Wemby's archetype has shown to struggle to stay healthy, whereas Coop's archetype has won championship after championship after championship. So if you want to say that as the crux of your argument, then I respect that.
And especially in this modern NBA where durability, I mean, they always say durability is the best ability. We're seeing it with these stars getting injured right before the playoffs. You want a guy who's durable, and he can do that for you. And also, who are the top 6 scorers in NBA history? Correct me if I'm wrong, but we are officially at, and I know my order is probably a little out of whack, Braun, Kareem, Karl Malone, Kobe, KD, and Michael Jordan.
Think so. Did Dirk make his way in there?
I think he's at 7. But if we're looking at our top 6, like I just said, does a single one of those 6 players have a full head of hair?
No. They do not.
I'm just saying. I'm noticing patterns. It's human nature.
What,
All right?
what about KD?
Flag is on the way. That all that going on up there?
No, dude,
I'm not counting that.
no, yeah, the crown of that dude's head is it's evaporating.
Yeah, it's a good thing that he's way up there, so no one's really seeing it. All right, and then my other NBA thing, because we'll talk about the actual teams next week. Like I said, playoffs coming up. So I just wanted to, give a little love to those teams that we're not going to be talking about when the NBA playoffs roll around. I know we said we weren't going to mention him because I was sick of it, but it's been a while. I got my interest back up. Dude, the Giannis thing never ends. I was trying to think of a good pun for it, just for all the gossip and drama and reality TV show aspect of it. The best I could think of, because it's a famously difficult name, is the show Pretty Little Liars. I've never watched it, but it seems like something with a lot of gossip and backstabbing and whatnot. Freaky Little Liars is what I'm calling this Giannis saga, because it has only gotten more insane. He's filing lawsuits more or less against his own team for not playing him. This is a guy who went from one of the most beloved players in the NBA to someone who I feel like the majority of people just can't stand. His I'm a nice guy, but nonsense. Just pick a side, man. And I'm very confident that that guy won't be a Buck next year. And hopefully that's the last time we talk about it in the 2026 NBA season, because next week, tough teams. It'll be very good.
Yeah, we'll have Larry Pags on next week. Part of a playoff preview. We might have Ethan on. I'm not sure, but you'll get us 3 plus Larry Pags. So at a minimum, we'll run a strong pod, and it'll be a great time. We'll have all the matchups are so up in the air right now. NBA. I'm watching the Raptors, Heat, and the TSN broadcast in Toronto. Kind of put up a graphic for the East and the West of all possible they did 1 through 8, and they put all the logos that could possibly
Mhm.
be, and nobody is locked into a spot. And several spots have at minimum 3 teams. There are a few spots that's only 1 or 2 teams, but most spots have 3 different teams. I think spots like 6 through 10 in the East have 5 different possible teams, being Charlotte, Philly, Toronto, Miami, and Orlando. So it's a cluster, what, and in a week's time, less than a week's time actually, because in the last day is on Sunday. In 5 days' time, we'll be able to figure out who's playing who, and we'll go from there. Then
And
So, Ben, if you're a top seed in the East, out of those 5 teams that you just listed off, who would you most wanna see in a first round series, and who would you least wanna see in a first round series?
it's obvious. You most want to see Toronto. They've had a nice year by their standards, but I mean, if Toronto just simply isn't scaring anybody in a playoff series, and least it's a team that I actually have on my screen right now because the Toronto Miami game's in the halftime right now. So I turn on I almost said Nuggets, excuse me, the Celtics versus the Hornets. You don't want any part of the Charlotte Hornets, man.
And who's up in that game
Yep,
right now?
they're leading the Celtics by 6 in Boston right now. Musa Diabate and Neemias Queta, are going at it. They have a kinda toughness, they play exciting, they play fast. God, the thought of having to face that team in the first round of the playoffs scares the living daylights out of me. It's crazy to say that, but they do.
That team's not going down in less than 6 games, and I really want them to go against Boston or Detroit in round 1 and just kinda beat those guys up, uh, or maybe Orlando. My boy, well, he's not my boy because he's kind of a scumbag. What's his name? I'm blanking right now. Gorgeous.
Niang?
What's the dude? Oh, not Niang. Jeez, I'm off.
Goga
Goga
Bitadze?
Batadze. He didn't come up in our scrapper draft. He's been making a late season push as one of the dirtiest guys in the league.
Yeah.
So he'll do some damage to whoever sees him in round 1.
Yeah. I said Diabate was mixing up with Queta. He's not. He's mixing up with Tatum, actually. Queta just kind of stepped in between the two. So when I caught it out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, oh, Queta and Diabate. No, that was full on Diabate and Tatum. So that's kind of wild. That's just exciting.
Diabate's a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good time. All right, gentlemen. Do we have anything left for the evening?
just we're gonna have next week's gonna be busy. NBA, NHL playoff previews. It's gonna be a long one. It's gonna be a good one.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good, V. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. Spread the word. It's fine. I think these episodes, I mean this sincerely, we genuinely are getting so much better at this. Like we used to, I feel like when Ethan and I first started doing it, the episodes flat out sucked. Then when we started getting a little better, incorporating Ben and Brandon, I feel like, Ben specifically, I feel like, we kind of alternate, one good, one shaky, one good, one shaky. I feel like we like streamlined together like a bunch of good episodes in a row. I actually think we're getting pretty solid at this. So spread the word. Who knows? Maybe something will go viral one day. You never know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it. Peace.
Have a great night.